All right, guys. Welcome to the. I was gonna say the Deadman Stone podcast. That's how old this is. That's how long I've been doing this. To the Deadman Horror Show. Wow, look at that. I'm your host, Mr. Deadman, and we actually have a sponsor here tonight. This show actually has a sponsor, Drayton Sawyer's Chainsaw Chili. It is delicious, absolutely delicious. They have the classic chili, they have the mango habanero, they have the a new flavor, the new white bean and lime. No matter which one you get, though, it's going to have all that nice, tasty meat. And remember, the secret is all in the meat. Does that sound good for you, Matthew Schmidt? Does that sound appetizing?
I love chili, so absolutely.
Well, you're going to love this. And it's made with the finest Texas meat, okay? Good stuff.
Have much better meat than from down there, so that sounds. I happen to be a huge steak person, and I know some of the best steaks come from down there. So.
Oh well, it's not beef. It's more of a long pig. Okay, but yeah, just go to Drayton Sawyer Chainsawchili.com and I use the promo code Deadman Horror Show, or just DHS. Okay, DHS, and you'll get yourself 10% off on the finest chili. All right. Anyway, with that said, let's get on with this. We have a lovely guest here tonight, Matthew Schmidt. Let's start off with this. Who are you and what do you do?
Wow, who am I? I am a 47-year-old married father of two. I have a full-time job and a dog and a cat and a white picket fence.
Wait, hold on. This isn't like a Tumblr page, okay? This isn't like a diary or a journal. No.
But I happen to chase my dream on the side, and that is screenwriting and filmmaking.
That's
and
good.
Right now, I am dabbling very heavily into the horror genre.
And that is nice, and that's why you are here tonight. A fan of horror, a creative mind in horror. I love that, absolutely do. And how did you get started with that?
Well, I started out actually years ago. I started out with a friend of mine. We said, we have all these like funny stories and funny things. Why don't we write them into I guess you could say, an American Pie style screenplay about a bunch of boys hanging out, drinking, trying to hook up with girls, all that fun stuff. And then, we really didn't do anything with it. And I kind of left it alone. And I guess you could say pursued a more 9-to-5 type lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of got to normal life. Movie. I always had a great idea for a screenplay that I'd like to write. So I went ahead, I wrote it, I finished it. It felt amazing just to get it out of my system. And I tried to look up how do you get your screenplay now that you've written one? How do you get it in front of people? How do you get it produced? Until you have an agent, you're not getting anywhere. So I followed what they recommended and started sending out query letters left and right. And I just wasn't hearing anything.
Okay.
So I said, well, it's not that I'm getting read and rejected. I'm just not getting read. And it's because I don't have a name behind me. So I happened to notice when I first got Amazon Prime, there was a guy advertising his movie on Facebook through Facebook ads. And it was a very much very similar to Paranormal Activity.
Okay.
So I watched 5 minutes of it, and he mentioned the local electric company near me in the opening dialogue. And I was like, oh, this guy's local. So I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, I just wanted to pick your brain. How'd you do this? How'd you get on Amazon Prime? All this stuff. So he informed me that Amazon Prime is pretty much open to amateur filmmakers as long as you meet certain requirements. And I said, well, what made you go with found footage horror? And he said, well, very simply, it was in my budget and in my capabilities. So I said, all right. And he started to make a pretty good name for himself. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and try this path. So I started doing that. And long story short, I am now 2 found footage films deep. And I am currently working on my first cinematic style horror film. And I'm just hoping to get a little better with each one, build my brand, and hopefully one day have enough of a name behind myself to actually put my screenplays in front of people.
Hey, that'd be nice. But I like your story here. I like how you start off as a kid with a passion of horror and wanting to, well, I guess, create little screenplays, kind of like American Pie, like you said. Though, were there any pies vandalized in your screenplays?
No actual pies, no.
Okay.
But I'm a guy who I grew up a lover of all movies. So I also grew up loving comedies. I'm probably dating myself right now, like Porky's and stuff like
Porky's is great. Yeah.
So I like that. When it comes to comedies, I love those like raunchy group of friend type comedies that aren't afraid to just be funny without worrying about insulting anyone. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. And you mentioned, so you got into this with found footage horror. Now, the movie I watched, I don't know if it's your first one, was the #The Challenge. Was that your first one?
It actually wasn't, and actually was. I'll tell you a little story on that. It's actually part of my second one.
Oh, okay.
My first movie was called Happy Birthday, Hannah. And it was, again, very much a Paranormal Activity style movie.
Okay.
That was using a combination of cell phone cameras and video cameras that I made look like in-home security cameras.
Mm-hmm.
To create that like that haunting style, much like Paranormal Activity did. And in the second one, I decided that I wanted to have a little fun with it and create a Tales from the Crypt style thing, but call it Tales of Found Footage.
Okay.
So I had a legitimately British guy be like a host. And what he did was tell 3 stories of found footage. The challenge was the first story out of those 3.
Oh,
okay. It was by far the most popular story out of the 3 stories. So after a while I was working on this current film that I'm working on, a friend of mine suggested, he said, hey, that one was like by far like a hit. Why don't you just release it as a short for free on YouTube and just a reaction you get? And since it was always positive reviews for that one short, the other 2 had mixed reviews, but that one short always had the best reviews. I was like, you know what? Let me just throw this out there. It's not weighted down by the other 2 films, the other 2 shorts, and just let it exist on its own. And it's been really pretty much nothing but positive feedback from it.
That's amazing. That's good. I haven't. I guess you haven't released the other ones because I haven't seen them. But I have to agree. Like the challenge, #The Challenge, was a great short. It was great. Like with found footage, sometimes it could be kind of, it's easy to do because it doesn't seem like it requires a whole lot. It has that look of being cheap or being kind of like easy, like bare bones, but like it was really good. It like the acting was convincing. Like I didn't even think they were acting. Like the girls that you had in that short, which by the way, listeners, like you can check it out right now. You can still watch #The Challenge on YouTube still right now, right?
Correct. It's still up there. It's not going to.
Yeah. Like, I swear, I thought they weren't even acting. I thought they were just legit, like, I guess 13, 14, I don't know how old they were supposed to be, but, like, girls that are, like, fascinated with some sort of, like, weird, like, TikTok trend, some sort of challenge to, go to a paranormal place or a haunted place and see what happens. I mean, you nailed it there. I mean, how did you do that? Like what was the process of that?
When coming up with 3 stories for Tales of Found Footage, which actually still with the challenge specifically, it was I found the setting first, and location first, and I said, okay, I fell in love with the location, and I was like, what can I do with this? What can I make of this? And I'm like, okay, this is easy. It's obviously a haunted type place. It looks haunted. Supposedly the location is haunted in real life, although a low caveat, nothing actually happened during filming. But
you undersold it. You undersold it. You could have you could have played it up. Be like, all sorts of things happened. You won't believe there was headaches. I was bleeding from my eyes.
I get a little too honest. But yeah, and I just said, well, like all these, it was pretty, I can't lie and say it was terribly difficult to come up with, because it's like internet challenges are so all over the place, and it's always hashtag this challenge, hashtag that challenge. So it was easy to come up with the title hashtag the challenge, but I said, okay, the challenge is that two whatever teenagers, I wasn't sure if it was going to be girls or boys yet, have to go into this haunted hotel and basically make it all the way up to the top floor and down without and survive it. And it really, it's one of those things that just came together so nicely because everything seemed to work. There wasn't that much of a struggle with it. The only thing I'll say is, going back to your earlier point, is found footage in some ways is very easy, in some ways is extremely limiting, because when you want to, you always have to think of a reason why a camera is pointed in a certain direction.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the audience knows that the people are supposed to be holding the cameras. So to come up with reasons for people to film stuff, reasons that people would believe you're filming something. Because if you're just walking down the street with your friends, you're not filming that.
Well, this day and age, I mean, the kids are filming everything. They have their phone out and filming, But anyway, sorry.
No, that's true too. But so there are some challenges with it, because you can't go as cinematic as you want to do, because you have to keep it in, you intentionally have to keep it raw, and it does make it that is a little bit of a challenge in itself.
I could see that. I mean, is that right though? I mean, as far as what I said earlier, that found footage films sometimes they're perceived to be kind of like cheap and low entry. Like, for example, Paranormal Activity. When that movie was in theaters, I looked at my wife. I was like, "We could have made this movie. We could have made this movie."
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so true, and it's funny because the 2 guys that made it had no filmmaking experience whatsoever. So you don't know, and there's so much found footage out there now on all the different streaming networks, and they're just like any other genre. There's plenty of good, and there's even more bad.
Certainly.
But I respect every effort, because I know personally how hard it is to make a good, well-received movie. Really difficult.
Imagine so. I mean, in your case, though, like, one thing I have to say once again, I got to ask a little bit here. Like, the acting is what sold it to me. Like, when I saw the girls you used, like the 2 main characters you had in it, you got me there, which I'm usually very skeptical and be like, oh, but I was like, man, this could be real. It seems legit,
Breaking up on me.
Oh, I was asking about the acting. How did you land that convincing acting with those girls?
Well, the good thing is after I made my first movie, a lot of people in my circle who had seen it, all of a sudden, everybody wants to be in a movie. They loved it, yeah, and they're like, "Oh, now I want to be in one. Now I want to be in one." So I was like, I just put out an open call. I said, "Well, does anybody have any actual experience?" And this, one of my coworkers actually said, "Well, my daughter does." So we auditioned her. She knocked it out of the park. And then I was auditioning people for the rest of Tales for the other two stories. And I turned to the casting agency, the casting director, and I said, "Hey, do you have any adults that look like teenagers?" And he's like, "You know what? I got the perfect person in mind." And that was the other girl. That was Hattie. We already had Delaney. And Hattie, and I said, "Look," I said, you look perfect. You look exactly like what I'm looking for. So I just have to run you through like, an audition. And in an audition for that, since there's no actual screenplay of dialogue, I had her scream. I had her look frightened and stuff like that. And she also knocked it out of the park. And then when I brought them together for the first scene, which for those who haven't seen it yet is the first scene in the challenge, we filmed that first because I wanted to make sure before we got them to set that their chemistry was on point, and it was. I gave them a few key points to hit in the dialogue, and I said, "Listen, I need you to improv the rest, and I need you to just hit these few key points in your dialogue. Other than that, I want you to have fun. I want you to be teenage girls and connect." And the chemistry was instant, and they just hit it off immediately. And it showed on screen their comfort with each other.
It did. It really did. It was good.
And I credit both of them for that, because I really didn't give them much that first night other than a few key points to hit it. So I really credit them for that.
Man, so you just gave them an outline. They kind of filled in the rest, which is quite a bit. There's a lot of things that happen and things that they say throughout, exploring the hotel. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Once we actually got to the hotel, once we got to set, then it became a little more buttoned up. And I said, okay, then they had to hit key marks, some key dialogue, because there had to be a flow to the film so that the audience could see the escalation and key things that they would see that would come up later in the film. However, I will say there was one thing that was completely unplanned and completely magical. When we got to the set the first day, we were setting up on the first floor of the hotel. And when you're, again, for those who haven't seen it yet, this is not really a spoiler, but Hattie, who plays Sarah in the movie, when she came across a painting in the hallway, it ended up looking identical to her, and that was complete coincidence.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Okay.
not planned, not anything. And we were like, well, we just found another thing we're going to have to add to the first floor.
Wow, you got lucky there.
Oh, extreme luck. It just worked out. I was like, oh my God, it does look exactly like her. That's freaky, and that's awesome.
It was all the right ingredients at the right time, and you got that great location, which is nice. Good stuff. Now, I want to say, I don't want to spoil anything. I want to say, I'll try not to spoil, but when you revealed what is, obviously, there's something in the hotel, and when you revealed what it was, that's a scary part. I knew it was coming, and when it did, I was like, oh man, I hope this, because when you see the monster usually, or see the the ghost, the monster, whatever, that could ruin it. But in your case, it didn't.
Well, I'm a fan of the subtle horror. I'm a fan of theater of the mind, and I'll start with one of my favorite movies, which is Jaws. And the opening
that's a good
sequence.
Movie. That is legit a good horror movie right there. To this day, I'm still scared to go too far in the ocean water. Like at the beach, I don't go far at all because of Jaws. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please. I'll talk Jaws all night. But on a quick side note, I actually went 2 summers ago. I took my family to Martha's Vineyard, and I took a 5-hour Jaws tour, and I hit up all the great locations. And I have a love and fear of sharks at the same time. And sure enough, the weekend we were up there, we got back home. And the weekend we got back, we saw that the same weekend we were up there, just across the, I'm not sure what they call it. I guess it's a sound. Just across the sound on the Cape Cod side, there was a huge great white that came right up to shoreline. And and we're like, wow, we were pretty much right there. So it was it was cool. But in, like with Jaws, obviously the opening sequence, you don't see the shark at all.
Right.
So your mind has to fill in what's going on under that water. And it creates an extremely powerful psychological visceral reaction in people, because now you don't have to see it. You know what's going on, and you bring your own fears into it. And it's the same thing with being afraid of the dark. As a kid, when you look into the darkness, whether you're in your house or wherever, you're scared. The reason you're scared is because you can't see what's in there. So the less you can see of something, your mind tends to fill in the rest. And I think Carpenter did it brilliantly with the first Halloween.
Yeah.
His use of shadows and open doors and open windows.
I agree with that.
That formula will always work and will never get dated, because the less you see of something, the more you're like, what was that? Whereas if you have a huge CG monster right in your face, it's almost an overexposure.
Oh yeah, and CG's man, CG is pretty bad. CG is really bad. Like because when you see it, you could tell it's computer generated. You could tell it's fake. You could tell it's not even there.
Right.
Like, show me something that's convincing. Okay, because what you're going to show me is already going to be otherworldly or something that shouldn't be anyway. But if it looks fake, then you lost me, you know?
Exactly. And it can take you right out of it. It really can, especially in a horror. Now, don't get me wrong, CG has its place. I love CG when I'm watching a superhero movie.
Sure.
So
yeah,
that
fine.
Right. But if it's horror, and if I really want my mind to have room to go. Whereas if you show me everything, my mind has no place to go than what you show me. And you can take a person right out of it. And it's unfortunate that more modern horror doesn't use that subtlety. A few of them do, but they don't use as much subtlety as the older ones did. And I think it's a formula that'll work forever, because human psychology really doesn't change all that much.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to show it out right away. Don't show the monster right away. Just kind of hint at it. In fact, man, what was it? Werewolf in Paris? Man, like you never, like, the whole chase sequence, like, it's like, oh man, that was great. That was great. I love that stuff.
I actually really like the Bush song from that movie.
That's a good song. That's a good song. Now, another thing I want to ask about your movie there, the hashtag The Challenge. If that was you in that situation, if it was you in place of those girls, like, what would you do? Would you be scared and running away, or would you, like, try to be a hero and fight those things?
Well, I don't think I'd ever try to fight something supernatural. I don't think I'm that brave. And I think the proof of it is, about 5 years ago, my friends on my birthday took me down to West Virginia to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which is an abandoned asylum, and they do ghost tours. They do overnight ghost tours.
Okay.
And it was some of the most fun I've ever had. Now, I am also very skeptical of things, so I will not say for certain that anything I saw was paranormal, but it doesn't matter, because the feeling I got, the level of fright that I got was real. And it was just so funny, because a metal door slammed near one of my friends, and he comes booking down the hallway. I see him booking. I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not staying here alone. I'm not going to let him run past me and be the last one out. So,
Right.
so I'm booking. So, yeah.
Man, all I gotta say, when I was watching the movie, when those girls saw what they saw,
throw my hero complex, I'd be like, nope.
no. Now's the time. You grabbed something and you attack those things. You know, try to fight. I would probably fail, but I would try to fight. Like,
I don't think I'm attacking anything that's coming at me like that. Sorry, you broke up a little.
Yeah, but it's kind of in and out sometimes. But I think a bigger question here: if you were in a horror movie, let's say if it was like Scream, like one of those slasher flicks, would you be like who would you be and why? What kind of character would you be?
Ooh, if I was in Scream, I would probably be the Randy character, just because. Mention that because the first screenplay I wrote, horror, is about a movie-loving detective trying to trying to catch a serial killer that's killing all the famous scream queens, all the final girls from these famous slasher movies. So you're very much a movie lover writing about these two different movie lovers, this killer one and this homicide detective one. And I think Randy might have been an inspiration for that whole idea, just because his whole love of the genre and the fact that the way Kevin Williamson wrote that script, it was just so, especially the Randy character, was just so like movie lovingly brilliant. So I can relate to that.
Okay, that's fitting. That's fitting for you. That makes sense. Like if I was in one of those films, I'd probably be like, I'm not a jock. I'm not athletic at all, but I would probably be driven to try to fight or try to be the hero of the day and just die, you know? Like I'd be like in Cabin in the Woods, like Chris Hemsworth. I'd be like him. Like, don't worry, I'm going to save the day. And get on the motorcycle, just ride into the freaking wall. Yeah, that would be me.
With supernatural, yeah, it's always a difference between like real people and supernatural. Thankfully, I haven't personally been in really that many life-threatening situations to have to worry about.
I might be breaking up right now. Looks like I'm kind of breaking up here. But there's another element in your hashtag the challenge in that it's kind of commentary on TikTok on the challenges.
Yes. Again, it was very organic that with the internet challenges that were everywhere, especially at the time. It was just such an easy catalyst for a story. That it was like, it just made it come together so easily, because it's like everybody's like hashtag this challenge, hashtag that challenge. Yeah. So I'm like, I'll just call it hashtag the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody, I would say mostly under my age, but most people from, my generation on down, it was the babysitter, because every kid in America knows what the babysitter is. Well, pretty much every kid in America knows what a hashtag challenge is. So the relatability was there for me.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And as far as like hashtag challenges on TikTok, like what are some of the more absurd ones that you saw that really got you? I thought, well, was it the slap? There was like a slap challenge to try to get kids to slap their teachers. Which is like, you're asking for a bad time.
I remember that one. Always the one that sticks out to me is the cinnamon challenge. Cinnamon, trying to swallow that, which I never tried, by the way.
I might have partaken in that. I mean, do I look like somebody that wouldn't partake?
Too much about it until extremely recently, and it's just very. yeah, I don't understand how these things even catch fire when it's about hurting yourself. Because why would you ever want to hurt I just don't understand that mentality. Like, let's say it creates any type of internet notoriety for you while you're already gone. So is that,
Right.
really beneficial, in any way, shape, or form,
Yeah, I see that too. And it's like, and guys, what we're talking about here, because there's some buffering, is there was this thing back in 2016. It seems like it died off, which is good. It was like this, what they called like the Blue Well Challenge on TikTok or whatever. And it was a challenge to encourage people to like self-harm and eventually take their own life. It looks like originated in Russia, of all places. It's true. I'm not making this up. It sounds extreme. It sounds like a Japanese horror movie called the Suicide Club, which I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. That movie is crazy, but it's real. It's 100%
yeah.
real.
I've one, but I know there are similar movies to it, and yeah. I mean, the internet, it's like anything else. It's a tool. And if it's used correctly, it can be fine. And if it's used irresponsibly, it can be really dangerous. But me, I'm just an entertainer, and I'm just hoping that I entertain people with this film. That's all. So hopefully this challenge is obviously not taken too seriously. However, if anybody is in the South Jersey area of the United States, they can visit the actual set, and supposedly it is haunted for real. And the owner is very welcoming. It is the Irish Pub in Atlantic City, and the hotel is above it, and that is where we filmed it. And it absolutely looks like a mini version of The Shining, which is why I fell in love with it.
Yeah, it did. It looked a lot like that. Yep. You really nailed it with that location. You nailed it with those girls and that location. It was great. One thing I want to ask you here too, because we're talking about a found footage movie that you made. What are some, in your opinion, some really good examples of found footage horror? It could be movies, it could be games, it could be whatever.
Well, I think I think we have to go back to the quote unquote godfather of them all, which would be the Blair Witch. I know it's been so cliched now and so parodied and what have you, but for me, when I first saw that movie, I fell in love with it. And it was, again, there were two things that really hit me: the theater of the mind, because you never actually really saw anything.
Right.
And
I know some people were pissed off about that. Oh, there was nothing there. But
yep. And also, the fact that when I saw it, I was pretty much wrapping up my college years, and I'm like, I could so easily see me and my friends doing this. I could so easily see this. So I related to it on that level. So it just struck me. It struck me really cool. And of course it was brand new. It was a brand new genre at the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, wow, this is actually really cool, because it makes you, the way they're talking to each other and stuff like that, it makes you feel like these are real people going through real things. Right. And you almost feel like you're watching a documentary more than you are a film. And it was, again, years later, the same thing with like Paranormal Activity. I'm like, oh my God, this is like perfect. I'm like, it's so subtle and so makes you anticipate what's going to happen. You're on the edge of your seat every night watching as it gets worse and worse every night. And I mean, those are the two most popular examples there, but there's on Amazon Prime and on Tubi has a whole found footage section. And I know YouTube has tons of found footage stuff.
Yeah, they do.
It's just a great way. And there's this one that really jumped out at me. It was called Lake Mungo. And I thought
I haven't seen it. I heard about it. That's one I've been wanting to check out.
And then there was one a little more recently. It was called Behind the Sightings. And what it did was, if you want to talk about internet challenges, it took, if you remember a couple years ago, there was that phenomenon where people were spotting creepy clowns like in the woods and near playgrounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Somebody took that idea and made a full movie, a full found footage movie out of it. And it's called Behind the Sightings. And it got mixed reviews, but I actually thought it was great. I'm like, this is really cool. I'm like, this takes something that's really going on in the world and turned it into a found footage horror where these clowns actually end up being pretty dangerous. And I thought it was
pretty cool. That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the idea with found footage is you're not just trying to create a movie or story. You're trying to create something that really connects with people because they believe it could be real. Like,
right.
There's that element of like when people watch, let's say like Halloween, whatever Kills or whatever the new one's going to be, like they know it's a movie, they know it's fake. But if they watch like Paranormal Activity, they'd be like, oh, is this real? Could this actually happen? Like, what's going on here? You know?
Well, I saw the first one with my wife, and she was like, that wasn't real, was it? When she saw the first Paranormal Activity, and I'm like, no, I promise, it's a movie. But you could so easily, I mean, if you even
wish it was real. A demon
you,
wants to come and try to pull me out of bed. Good luck on that.
If you even slightly believe in hauntings, you're sucked into something like Paranormal Activity, because it's the way they presented it was in a very real fashion, and it was just very, very well done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I what I love about found footage is it gives people a chance who don't have extreme means to still express themselves artistically.
That is true. Yeah. Because the other mediums, like I guess, trying to create a cinematic movie that does require more. It does require more resources.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm trying to work on right now, and it is extremely, extremely challenging, because with my producing and filmmaking partner, he calls takes that are in found footage, he calls them theater takes, because you kind of just let the camera roll a lot of times, and you just let them go and let them act and let them play it out. And with cinematic, it's shot, cut, and it is just very, very and you have to light each one of those shots the way you want it. You have to get the sound right, you have to get the actor doing what you want them to do. It is infinitely more challenging and astronomically more shots than found footage style. And it's tough. It's tough, and I'm really hoping with my first one it'll come out decent, because it's definitely very challenging.
All this talk about found footage hard, and I'm thinking of a particular movie on mine right now, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. Like the way they presented it, they presented it as if it was found footage, but of course it was shot cinematic style. But however, the camera angles were kind of like weird, like why has it been shot this way? Like,
right?
Someone watching them. I know they continue to remake that movie, because every time they make a new one, they kind of go back to the beginning, because there's, I guess, only so much you can do with it. But although there are some creative ones anyway. If they wanted to try, I mean, they might as well, because they're gonna redo it again. Why don't they do an actual found footage, like someone's actually recording it, like one shot, like just one stream? I could see it easily happening, but if they want to do that.
Right. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I actually very much agree with you. The original was shot so intentionally raw that it almost looked like like what's come to be known as a snuff film.
Yeah.
Because it was extremely raw and extremely, you were meant to feel uncomfortable as an audience member. And the way Tobe Hooper shot that, he absolutely knocked it out of the park. You felt 100%. Extremely comfortable watching it. And what he put the actors through too. He got great, genuine performances out of them because they were so uncomfortable. I remember them talking about the smell of the food on the table after multiple days of multiple takes, and it was just absolutely disgusting. And the fact that she was covered in blood and sticking the fake blood and sticking to her chair and that. And it's funny because I remember they've been trying to get a new Friday the 13th off the ground for years, and there was a while. For a while there, they were saying they might do it found footage style in the woods, which I thought would have been a brilliant way to reinvigorate.
That would be great. Yeah,
brilliant way to invigorate it. It hasn't come to pass yet, but I'm still hoping they go that route one day.
Are they still in lawsuit hell? Like, I thought there was some issues, like some litigation, but
I think it just recently settled. So there will be something in the relative near future. But yes, for a while that was the title Friday the 13th was tied up in legal hell. So.
Yeah, I believe, what was it? The original script writer, I'm forgetting his name. He wrote in essentially baby Jason. He's not really a baby, but adolescent Jason, as he comes out of the water and pulls the girl in. And like he was trying to claim of it. You know, this is kind of rough. I need to go back into it and kind of like explore with the lawsuit. Unless you know, I'm just based on memory.
Only bits and pieces what I've heard. I think you're referring to Sean Cunningham, but he might have just been the director. I'm not sure, but it was. I know it was tied up, and that's why for many years they were using the title Jason in the titles instead of Friday the 13th, because they couldn't use it for a few years.
Okay.
So it's again, supposedly, I think I read something within the last 6 months about that case settling finally. So hopefully, you know, but I still say that would be a brilliant way to reinvigorate that franchise, is go found footage style on it.
I think so too. I got a couple questions for you. This is kind of one or the other, okay? I'm going to give you some horror movie titles, and you choose one over the other, okay? All right?
Okay.
Shining or The Exorcist?
Oh, The Exorcist by a hair. By a hair.
All right. Why is that?
Again, it's just so raw and so visceral, and so I love, because I grew up Catholic, the religious horrors really appeal to me. But it's so hard.
Even
to
as
go
not
again.
a Catholic, it appeals to me too, because it's kind of cool, you know.
It's just so I love that. I love The Omen. I love The Exorcist. I love those satanic movies. I think they're so intriguing and so well done. A lot of them from that era. But just barely, because I love Kubrick and I love his style, and I just, The Shining was absolutely brilliant. And obviously, since you've seen it already, a heavy inspiration for the challenge.
I can see that. Okay, all right, that's good. What about this? Halloween, like the original, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Halloween.
Ooh.
Halloween. As much as I love Texas Chainsaw with its rawness, I love Carpenter's filmmaking style, especially on display in Halloween. And that the music and that mask will work forever.
You know, I'm the opposite there, and like Halloween has been my favorite horror movie, still kind of is. But recently, rewatching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, like I've been like, the first one is really good. Like, it's really dirty and gritty, though. You feel bad lasting impact, I suppose. You know, iconic theme, mask, and all that.
You kind of nailed it with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. As brilliant and as raw as it was, it's actually much like The Exorcist in the way that it's raw, but it's also limited. And the sequels, with the exception of Exorcist 3, by the way, which I still feel is the most underrated horror sequel ever. But a lot of the sequels to both franchises have fallen very much flat.
Yeah. Though I did like Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. I did like that. It was so, you know, this is not that stream, you know, but like I like that direction. It was like, you know what, I'm gonna make it more of a comedy. Because apparently Toby was like, no, the first one actually was a comedy. Like he thought it was a comedy, which I could see that because there was some like dark humor, especially when the family's all together. Like I was like, okay, yeah, this is like a comedic bit wrapped in like horror shit that we're supposed to be scared of and, you know, disturbed by, but like there's a comedic flair there. It's dark and gritty. But the second one was like more over the top. We're gonna be, you know, it was like comparing Evil Dead 1 to Evil Dead 2 in my mind, anyway.
Right.
How about this one? Saw or Hostel?
You broke up.
Oh, I broke up? Okay.
A little there.
Saw or Hostel? Am I still breaking up?
No, I think you're coming in a little clearer now.
All right. Saw or Hostel?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'll say Saw only because it caught me completely off guard. It's one of the movies that actually tricked me at the end. And I'm not used to getting tricked at the end anymore. So
yeah, you're right about that one. Yeah.
I'll say Saw for that reason because it tricked me at the end. Yeah, I'll have to say Saw on that one.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I agree with that one. Last one. Scream or Final Destination?
Scream.
Yeah.
I
have to agree with that one too.
I don't want to Final Destination because it definitely it kind of had me on the edge of my seat. Like it showed you that there's so many ways to die, even in your own house, so easily. But Scream, as a movie fan, as a horror movie fan, it hit on so many things. How people screw up, how people mix up Wes Craven and John Carpenter, how people, so many jokes that have been running for years. People forget that Mrs. Voorhees was the first killer and Jason didn't come along till later. Like, they hit nails on the head as a movie fan that you almost sat there. You sat there and you were thinking, wow, this is actually more made for me as like more of a movie buff than your general audiences.
Yeah, it was very meta. It was very aware, which was pretty cool for a horror movie to have. And I also like that in Scream, like you didn't know who the killer was because the killer could be anybody because it's just a ghost face, just a mask and a costume. It's not like someone who escaped from an asylum or, you know, it's not a reanimated zombie thing or whatever Jason's supposed to be. You know, it's not like a little doll running around. It's not like Hellraiser, some Leatherface. It's anybody. It could be any one of them.
There's a lot of red herrings there, so which is cool too. So they really combine movie loving with murder mystery with just fun jump scares.
Now, Final Destination I liked. There's one thing it almost every time I see it, it almost ruins it for me. Why do they have to show the fucking slime shit? Like I was totally on board with like Death like coming after him. But then when they showed like what Death was supposed to be or whatever that was, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it looks horrible. I don't know why you're doing it. I don't know what they were thinking. Am I wrong there? I mean, am I being...
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the appeal of theater of the mind. When you show too much, you take people's imagination out of it, and therefore take their audience engagement out of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, I got one for you if you don't mind, because this is a favorite of mine. Fright Night or Lost Boys?
I'm gonna have to go with Lost Boys.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go with Lost Boys.
All right. Fair enough. Hey, I can't listen. I personally, again, it's like Fright Night by a hair for me, but just by a hair.
I need to rewatch Fright Night, but because I recently watched The Lost Boys, so that's why I'm thinking that right now. That's why.
Nope.
Probably. So no.
I love both.
Right now, lately, I've rewatched all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, and that's why I kind of prefer like Texas Chainsaw Massacre over Halloween. But however, like I said, Halloween was one of my favorites for a good long time. So that could change. Okay. Now you mentioned you're working on a cinematic movie, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, are you wrapping up with it? Like, where are you on? Oh, I'm sorry.
On with shooting.
Whatever.
Shooting.
Okay.
I would say.
Okay, 75%. And like, what sort of obstacles do you foresee coming? Like, because it's different, right? It's different doing a cinematic movie versus a found footage. What are some hurdles you foresee coming your way with this?
Well, the hurdles, I can tell you for sure the hurdles I faced so far, which is just the amount of shots, the amount of time that it takes. For me, my biggest problem is time itself, just because I do have a full-time job. I do have a full house. And it's very hard, very difficult to find time to do these things. And you're coordinating multiple schedules. So that's a huge challenge in itself. The challenges I foresee coming are, the problem is when I see cinematic style movies that are shot on a limited budget,
mm-hmm.
I always kind of steered away from them up until now. But now I'm just taking a chance and rolling the dice because I always felt they looked cheap and the acting came across as bad on low budget cinematic style features. So I was always afraid to tackle that monster. So I'm trying to basically put my fears aside, because I did shoot a short for my daughter, a short inspirational film, which was only 2 minutes long. And it came out well enough that I said, okay, I can try this now. But I'm still afraid of the final product. I'll be honest with you. And I guess it's good because fear keeps you sharp. But I'm definitely afraid of the final product. I really want it to be. I want it to work.
Right.
So if at least I know that it works. I know I can't control other people's opinions, whether it's received well or not. But at least if I know if it works and it's something I can, be proud of, be like, okay, I took a significant jump from the challenge
mm-hmm.
to, and I can tell you the title because I've put it out there already. It's Mr. Sandman.
Mr. Sandman. Okay.
Yep. So I would like to take a huge filmmaking jump from the challenge to Mr. Sandman to just be like, okay, he's getting better with every film, and if I can hang my head on that, if I could say, at least I'm getting significantly better with each film, then I'll be, happy with that. But those are some of the challenges that I've experienced. And that's the challenge that I see, is that worry about, will it look like it's like it was actually done on somewhat of a budget.
Okay. And in this film, is it going to go? I mean, is it going to go directly to Amazon Prime?
I'm going to. It'll definitely. I'll definitely explore the Prime route. I will explore the Tubi route. Basically, every streaming service I can get it on, I will get it on. And then after a few years, much like Tales of Found Footage, after it's had its run and it's burned itself out like anything, I would probably eventually throw it up on YouTube to just let it be out there.
Hey, that'd be good. That'd be good. You know what? And even if it is bad, that still could be a good thing. I mean, because think about this. Even if it's bad and it gets reviewed by, let's say, like Red Letter Media and their best of the worst, you're still getting. I mean, it's still getting some attention. It might become like a cult classic or whatever. But like, I guess it might be bad, but is it going to be like The Room bad?
Right. It's you never know with these things, and I try to keep in mind that sometimes things hit later too, than they do. There, going back to found footage real quick. There's a found footage movie called Megan is Missing, which came out a while ago.
That was a good one. Is that
And
the one I'm
was
thinking
dead.
is?
It was dead for years, and then all of a sudden it started to pick up, like people started to pay attention to it, like in a viral fashion, and it just blew up like on the internet.
That's the one that people actually thought was like an abduction thing, right?
It was about the abduction, yeah, and it was actually really really disturbing at the end. So which, is good, because that means the director did his job correctly, but without giving too much away to those who haven't seen it, but that's something that blew up later. So you just never know with these things, but so far I feel like I've been going in the right direction. I just want to make sure that I keep going in the right direction as far as quality.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I suppose just have fun with it too, right? I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, it's when I actually get the time to actually film, I'm having fun. But because my heart is so cinematic, try to graduate somewhat from found footage. I'm not going to say I would never go back and explore it again if I had an idea for it, but a lot of my heart is in cinematic.
well, I like this. I like that you're trying something new. It's a risk, but you're willing to do it. And through that experience, there will definitely be growth there. And I mean, there's plenty of examples that have done far worse, so you should be okay. I've seen some stuff on Amazon Prime that make me wonder, like, what were they thinking? I reviewed one of them. One of the worst one I think I've ever seen was something called Deep Fried Cajun. I think that was the name of the movie. It was horrible. It was really bad.
No.
Deep Fried Cajun Werewolf or something. Cajun Werewolf. It was horrible. It was god awful. But it won't be that. I'm 100% sure it's not going to be that. Because hashtag the challenge was good already, and you're competent, and you're able to, direct. If you could direct teenage girls to perform there, that sounded wrong the way I phrased that.
I understand what you meant, though. Yeah. It's okay.
You got to be careful. Okay, but I think you're going to be okay there. I think so.
Well, thank you for your vote of confidence. I appreciate it.
Well,
and I'm really like the challenge. I really am.
Well, Matthew, this has been the Dead Man's Tome podcast. Sorry, the Deadman Horror Show. It was a name. This show has had many names over the years. Has had many names. I hope you enjoyed this experience. In the future, we'll take care of the internet issues, I suppose.
It's been an absolute honor for me. Thank you for having me. I could do 3 hours of talking film, but I don't want to bore the crap out of you.
Oh no, this is good. This is good. I try to keep it around an hour now, but next time we want to talk about a particular topic or particular series of movies, a set of movies, definitely hit me up, or I may invite you on again, and we can do that because you know your stuff and you like to talk. That's great. That's good stuff.
I do. It could be a blessing and a curse, but I do.
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for watching. Y'all take it easy.